This was a really interesting issue of Coda, issue 4. So if you don't know, Coda is kind of a dark fantasy book set in a post-high fantasy world. So there's still lots of magic running around. It's just kind of like the Mad Max of magic. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. That's our main character. That's his wife, Circa. And unfortunately for our main character, they're on a quest. Now, the thing I thought was really interesting about this issue is how do I put this? Coda is kind of a deconstruction of fantasy. Like Watchmen is a deconstruction of superhero tropes. The characters here are aware of how the fantasy world works. That's why our main character refuses to call things a quest. He's jaded. He's cynical. He doesn't believe in that kind of stuff. Well, his wife has dragged him on a quest. He refuses to call it that. He's doing every bit of mental gymnastics he can to avoid thinking of it that way. Her, on the other hand, we're on a quest. And so they're trying to deal with the fact that a crazy cult has moved into their property and basically is destroying their crops, pooping everywhere, and dying. Like, that's where they're at in their lives. And she was like, let's get away. He's like, great idea. And so they're away. They're looking for like some lunar mage or something because there's a new moon in the sky, a crazy cult that's referencing prophecies that involve the new moon, all that kind of stuff. So while they're off on this quest, he's like scavenging magic and stuff, and she's busy doing what, I forget what they call her people. Urkin, I think? They're basically orcs. She's doing what they do best, which is smash. They're the ones who brought about the downfall of the universe. Well, not the universe, the world. And you can see he's like doing stuff with the magic that he scavenged. I think you're trying to find a wizard. And he's like, it's the lunar wizard, isn't it? And she's like, yes. And so they go questing. And there's lots of really pretty looking art in this book, man. It's one of the things I like about it. And they're well aware of the quest structure. They're like, oh yeah, the rule of 3. Stuff like that. So it's very self-aware. The book, at this point, is deconstructing itself. I don't know what that means, but that's what it's doing. This book is deconstructing its own deconstruction of fantasy. Does that mean that we're going to start reconstructing fantasy? Is this going to turn to like some weird reconstructionist thing? If so, that's a really, really bold choice on the part of the writer. And I want to be absolutely clear that I'm here for it, as the kids say. Because our hero's going to have to stop being so cynical by the end of this. There's no way he can remain where he is after she spends this whole book talking about how being on a quest isn't just skipping right to the end and getting the final foozle. It's going along the way, growing, following the format, becoming a better person, becoming a stronger person, that kind of stuff. Which I don't know that they accomplished that so far in their quest. He's certainly thinking about a lot of things. She's certainly thinking about a lot of things. And where these are going to go, I'm not sure. She's also, I should mention, pregnant and berserking. I don't know if that's necessarily a good combination, but I don't know Urkin physiology, so maybe it's okay. This was a very interesting issue. I like to say that, I have a lot of fun reading Coda. And while that's true, this one actually got me like thinking about stuff as I was reading it. And I'm not so sure that any prior issue of Coda has made me stop and think about stories, the structure of stories, and that kind of thing. There was a book from Vault a few years ago, which has had a couple sort of sequel-y things. What was it? I think the sequel was like a dark Fearscape. That was the original miniseries. And that was a story about the structure of stories. And it's very thought-provoking. It felt very much like a classic Vertigo title. Like, if it had come out in the 90s, Vertigo would have published it, and it would have been like very favorably received. Everybody who likes Sandman would have read it and been like, this is amazing, I love it. However, it didn't come out until 2018, and that era of comics is kind of past us. This issue was thought-provoking in the same way. I really enjoyed it. It's also a very pretty book to look at. Coda has always been a pretty book. The art by Matthias Bergara, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, since the first miniseries, has just been fantastic. This issue is no exception. It looks great. I kind of get the feeling here in issue 4 that, man, I should have waited for this to come out as a trade or a series of trades and just read it all in one go. Because reading it piecemeal like this, when I was flipping through on New Comic Book Day, I couldn't remember a dang thing about what happened in issue 3. Not until I had read a couple of pages of this did my brain start putting everything back together, reaching the filing cabinet, getting the info out. I've been kind of vague about what they were doing in this issue, too. Just talking about the thought-provoking stuff. But they're on a quest. They're doing quest stuff. And that's fun, because she's calling it a quest and he's not. Anyway, I'm going to start talking in circles if I don't just shut up. So you all take care of yourselves. You have a great one. Hope to see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.